Welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight, joined by Matt Boyer from Broncos TV. What up, Matt?
Hey, guys. Happy to be with you. It's June, finally. I didn't think we'd make it here.
I know, man. It's been a wild 2020. There's no question about it. And, of course, it seems like every week we have new things to talk about. In this week, though, as we're about 6 weeks out or so from the start of training camp, I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about the defense. We were talking with Steve Atwater in the last segment about the outside linebackers. I thought with you we'd talk a little bit about the slow start that the defense got off to last year. Now, we know part of that had to do with the extended training camp. Guys were fatigued, mentally, physically, all of that. But there was also an adjustment to a new system. So I guess what I want to talk about is, do we expect them to get off to a little bit faster start this year because there's so many returning guys, or because of the limited work in the offseason, should we still expect a little bit of, I guess, struggle with communication early on?
I think they're going to get off to a fast start. We did see a lack of turnovers, a lack of sacks, especially in the first quarter of last year. But I think a lot of that also had to do with the type of offense that the Broncos were playing against. You see that Raiders game, they didn't give up a ton of points, but the offense wasn't really forcing the issue, wasn't really forcing the Raiders to kind of get after it, take some chances, and really go after the Broncos. Same thing with the Bears and the Packers game subsequently after in that first quarter of the season. So I think that as the Broncos offense gets better, I think that you're going to see opposing offenses also have to take more chances down the field, hold onto the ball a little bit longer in the pocket, and that's going to allow guys like Von Miller and Bradley Chubb to get after the quarterback. Justin Simmons maybe to sit back, get some more interceptions this season. So I think that by having a better offense, you're going to see opposing offenses have to play more to the Broncos defense's strengths.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. I mean, you're going to have a little bit more balance. But, Ben, you've talked about it on the radio show many times. As it relates to getting more turnovers and sacks, that does give your offense more opportunities. I mean, that's just an equation kind of thing. So how does this change the trajectory of the season? I mean, we think about those first 4 games that they lost, and the way that the offense really wasn't been able to be on the field very much. And even though they were a little bit limited, you would think that giving more opportunities, if they can get off to a little bit faster start, immediately changes the trajectory of what we're expecting on the season.
Well, absolutely. And I think part of it, last year with the slower start, part of it was learning the new scheme. Part of it was all these other things. I think a large part of that is the book on the Vic Fangio defense and how to attack it has been written. Vic Fangio has been around the NFL for 40 years. It's not like he's, people haven't seen what he does on defense. And so what you had was teams trying to get the ball out quickly. That eliminates the opportunity for sacks. And Matt pointed out, they didn't put up a ton of points, but they dinked and dunked the way up and down because that's how you move the ball in that defense, which keeps the play in front of you and tries to hold you to field goals. So, I think you're going to see teams try to emulate that. You may not see the sack totals. Vic Fangio defenses are not prolific for their sack totals. But what you do need to see is generate turnovers because that is what the hallmark of the Vic Fangio defense is. If you could generate turnovers, you put the ball back in your offense's hands, and that's one more opportunity for them to go down there and put more points on the board. And that'll move that needle going from 17 scoring a game up to 24, 25 a game where you need to be.
Okay, so based on Ben's point there, Matt, let's talk about the secondary. You lose Chris Harris Jr., but you did kind of gain somebody there with Justin Simmons. You're going to keep him. You gained, obviously, A.J. Bouye. You have Kareem Jackson. You've got some playmakers back there. Is it going to be enough? If the plan here is to get the requisite pressure that you hope to get with the guys that you already have, but the secondary is going to have to do their thing. What do you think?
I think the secondary can also, take a step forward. We mentioned, Ben mentioned it, not a ton of sacks, but I do think one of the best things about Vic Fangio's defense is allowing secondary playmakers to really play to their strengths and make plays. When you have a playmaker like Justin Simmons back there at free safety, before last season, Justin Simmons' season high pass breakup total was 4. Last year, he had 15. So we've seen guys be able to come into this defense and make plays. We also heard last week from Ed Donatel, Michael Ojemudia might play a little bit bigger of a role than we had initially suspected on draft night. So I think his athleticism is also going to allow him to make plays maybe sooner than we expected. So I think there are some positive things that you can look at in this secondary and say, hey, you know what? I do think they can be a huge contributing factor to this defense.
I'll send you $5 in the mail for that Michael Ojemudia plug there. That's my guy, so I appreciate that. Ben, let's go over to talk about a backup defensive player. Knowing that there are a lot of rotations that happen on the defensive side of the ball, give me a backup guy that maybe we should be talking a little bit more about, or by the end of the season will have a bigger impact than we're projecting.
Well, I don't know about backup, but it's going to be guys that are in the down roster rotation in the cornerback mix, whether that's Duke Dawson, whether that's Devontae Bosby. Those guys are going to have to step up. We saw last year where they had to step into almost starting roles at times, Devontae Harris as well, starting roles at times because of the injuries. Now what we need them to be able to do is competently come in and play that nickel and dime backer role, be able to get in there and create interceptions, make sure that they're winning their one-on-ones against wide receiver 3 and 4 when they're out there. So, I think it's going to be one of those guys that we're going to be talking about.
I think we should also talk about the defensive line. I mean, those guys, especially the interior defensive line, there's going to be a little bit of a rotation. How about a guy like DeMarcus Walker, who is not projected right now necessarily to be a starter, but he showed some flashes last year. Matt, what do you think?
I think Walker could definitely be one of those guys. I think continuity with Walker is going to be a big thing because remember, he was outside for a little bit, then he went inside, then he went back outside, now he's back inside. So I think they finally found a place for him now in Vic Fangio's scheme. The other guy that I think is going to play a bigger role is Draymond Jones. Remember back at Ohio State, it took Draymond a couple of years to kind of assimilate into that Ryan Day defense and really get comfortable with his role. And I think he's kind of going through the same assimilation process here in the NFL, and I think he has a big role to play next year as well.
Yeah, Ben, you've been really high on Draymond Jones, and he finished the season obviously with a bang. Kind of makes you believe that he is really ready for a big step forward.
I think he is. I think he's going to be the primary rotational guy at the 3-5, and maybe even if they go into a 7 or 9 technique, he can fit in there as well. He's got some versatility that allows you to kind of kick him all over that line. I think he's going to be a guy that is a big factor this year. I like the DeMarcus Walker thing as well, although he's in a contract year. It'll be interesting to see. Now that he's in a natural position, it'll be there. Don't sleep on guys like Covington and Najim, the draft pick. I think both those guys have ability. Covington especially. He's the guy that's going to sneak up on people that they're not talking about right now.
Yeah, and that's a very good point you bring up, especially as the season wears on, because you have guys that get kind of banged up. We talked about the COVID stuff earlier. That could also play a little bit of a factor in your rotation. So that's a really good point you bring up, because it was by the end of the year where we're talking about some of the younger guys getting those opportunities to really shine, giving you optimism heading into next year. Thank you, Matt Boyer, for joining us. Thank you, Steve Atwater, for joining us earlier in the show. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thank you for watching Broncos Country Tonight.